Hello. In order to simulate me being only able to use one unit, I decided to use a fan game of Battle Bricks called the Battle Bricks Frontline, which allows you to be the enemy, not enemy, the unit. I only mostly did this not because I wanted to allow myself to only have one unit, but to also allow me to control that unit, as it would be way harder if I only was able to use one unit at a time and they always did the same thing over and over again. And that's why I use front lines, which allows me to choose when I want to attack and choose when I want to do stuff. For the most part, I'll talk about the rules after we get to the first boss, so I'll see you there. I guess I should say the rules of this real quick. Whenever I beat a chapter or beat the first star, I'll let myself use the I'll let myself use the unit that they give for the third star. Yes, that sounds a little bit like cheating, but however, most of the time if I didn't have Lol Doombringer, this would probably be much more harder, as this video length would be 3 times as long. And for why I paused here, I mostly paused here only because this stage is the only one that forced me to respawn my speed coil constantly. Of course, it didn't really challenge me, but still, it just made me have to reuse and reuse again and again and again. Alrighty, now we're at the final boss of the first chapter. This boss didn't really cause much trouble, mostly because with my XP that I gained by only using dual speed battler, I managed to fully max out hammer battler, and get and my main goal for this boss was to use band hammer to chip away at the boss's health. The reason why I decided to use Banhammer was to A, be able to kill all the backliners, and B, although yes, he can't really survive that many attacks, he can dodge, or we can make him dodge, which makes him very powerful in being able to avoid the boss. Like right now, I just bait his attack, run away, and then I come back and quickly attack him a few times. For his second phase, which is about to happen, I think. There it is. I initially thought that, oh no, I was gonna have to switch over to Titan Battler. No, Banhammer Battler is just strong on his own and can survive many attacks from the main boss, which is how we managed to get that victory. As after this, I'm pretty sure to I swapped to Speed Coil Battler in order to speed up this process. Also, can someone tell me why is there a golden Banhammer Battler? And why is he a Titan? Someone explain that to me. As for the first few levels in the second chapter, I thought I could easily just use dual coil for the enemies, but no, apparently he's too weak. And I decided, instead of having to go through the process of spamming dual coil battler, I decided to use a little Doombringer for this level, as he's anti-red, which helps out a lot with dealing it, and he can kill multiple enemies at once, which definitely helps with the start of the stages. For some reason, I thought it would be a very good idea to just spam dual coil. Actually, no, now I know why. Because there is an enemy in the stage, the Bucket Battler, that insta kills your current battler and turns it into a noob. Not noob, normal battler. For normal battler stuff and Bucket, I decided to not count it as a separate what I decided to allow it, since you definitely wouldn't want to just see me in the menu for like 10 seconds at a time, because every single time I get turned into a battler by the Bucket and not being able to control it. So that's the only exception. For the rest of these, I'll just make sure to try and keep any new strategies up. If I don't, my fault. Sorry. Alright. For this stage, I initially thought I could just easily use the Banhammer strat and just not Banhammer, Doombringer strat. However, they the enemies have a recoil which causes your current battler to move back a lot, like right now. And so and so after I figured that out, I constantly swapped between Banhammer and Titan, I think. And then after just giving up, I just decided to spam dual coil battler. Or at least I think. I can't remember this stage. I know it's the first stage that made me think that, oh no, recoil is a bad thing to have for the enemy team. I don't actually remember what I did with that information, so goodbye. Second boss. Sorry, not first. This boss, despite being normally easy in when you play it normally, because I was playing with only one unit, I had to use Titan Balor. Not because it was the GOAT or anything, mostly because if I didn't, I would constantly have my Balor get annoyed. And so I decided to only use Titan up until I beat the boss, where I spammed dual speed. This is the first actual stage that gave me a little bit of trouble. Not because it was actually hard, but because I actually had to reuse my strat of using Doombringer and having to constantly dodge the boss's main attack. Not boss. I think it was giant something giant. I can't remember. Anyways, yeah. For this boss, I had to constantly go back and forth between attacking and running away in order to deal damage to him constantly. And and this also happened with the with the Titan in the back, which means I had to avoid two in one while constantly having to deal damage. And the giant becoming enraged, it will not help me out in the end. The second final boss. This is the boss that made me constantly have to reconsider my strategy. For my first strat, I initially thought of going with Titan, and I did manage to get some hits off. However, the main problem of this stage is the dreaded Bucket Battler, as he is very, very annoying, as he constantly transforms you into a battler if you're not careful. As for what I did, this is the failed attempt, so I'll skip over this one and go to the real attempt after this. As for what I did for my second attempt at this boss, I thought I would still use Titan, but when I finally thought of what to actually do for the strat, I finally realized that the one battler that I've been ignoring this whole time, Lil Death Battler, was the key. Not because he is actually good for this fight, but because he has speed. And you know what they say, speed is key. So how did I use his speed? Well, if you know anything about what I did before for the first boss, I dodged his attack like I was Sans the skeleton. And for this time, I realized that I should use Deathbringer, as he is pretty good if I can dodge with him. That's exactly what I did to defeat the boss. However, what was hard was after defeating the boss. I had oh my gosh, as I constantly had to I had to constantly deal with buckets without dying as the Telemon Battler. But of course, if you really want to see the full thing, I'll see if I can try and post it as a. Sorry. I'll try to keep it unlisted and then copy the links so that people can see the video, so that you can see what it all is. Of course, it'll still be silent, but it'll mostly just be for people who want to see what the whole journey was. I'll use this time to ask you to subscribe. If you like this video and want to see more of this content instead of doing regular battle breaks, trying to see if I could solo it by myself, subscribe and maybe I'll consider it. Goodbye.